Hello and welcome everybody to another brand new episode of Overruled with Katie Zed. I'm sorry, Overruled with Xena featuring Katie Zed. Don't forget, if you donate during today's show, Xena will get a milk bone live on air. Just before we went live, her camera was very blurry and it just cleared up all of a sudden. So I'd like to thank God for that because I did say a little prayer that everything would go right today and it just magically cleared up. So I think that's his doing. I don't know for sure, but I would like to think that. I'm being told my microphone is popping, which is great news for me. I'm going to bring on my guest, Frank, from the Let's Be Frank channel. And while he's telling you about himself, I'm going to see if I can fix my mic. Frank, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I received a invitation from Xena to be here, and of course, she said you would be co-hosting as her sidekick. So I'm glad I could be here for Xena and you.
Awesome. I'm going to switch this mic out. Do you want to tell the good people what your channel?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, I'm very excited to be here tonight, to be part of Overruled, and I look forward to talking about this case. And Katie Zed invited me. I run a channel on YouTube here called Let's Be Frank, and I cover political commentary of things that are happening within the country, cultural commentary. I also run a secondary channel called Uniquely Us, who I partnered with my wife to do that, but she hardly ever comes on with me anymore. It's just basically my second channel at this point. But over on that channel, I do Bible studies. We break down the Word of God, and I cover other cultural things that are pertinent to Christians to know and things that are happening within that realm. So both great channels. I hope that you will come out and support each one of those. And I appreciate it if you are new to either channel. Let me know if you guys come by and check out my videos.
Yes.
Are you muted? Oh, you must still be doing the mic stuff there. Okay.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
And now you're coming through my speakers. This is not good. Give me a second. No. I don't know what's happening. Okay, I can hear now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. No echo?
Holy cow. Apparently the microphone is coming through my camera. That's not good. Let's try that.
There we go.
Oh,
I can hear you.
It's always something, Frank. It's always something. Thank you for filibustering there for a minute. I truly appreciate that. I am probably bright red right now. I just had a panic attack. Anyway, so we're going to get into this story right now. This is about Jessica Lunsford, and the reason why we're doing this case with you here is because you suggested this case to me because you lived in the area when this happened, and it was a big deal at the time. I remember it peripherally being covered on the news here. I lived in Georgia at the time, but I imagine not nearly as much as it was on the west coast of Florida where you are.
Yeah, no, for sure. It happened back in 2005, and we were talking a little bit off air before coming on, talking about a little bit of this case. You know, there's been cases in Florida that have really rocked the state. I mean, we had Ted Bundy was captured here in the state. Yeah. We had the Matt Walsh, Adam Walsh crime that took place here in Florida, and Jessica Lunsford case really captured the entire state, but not only the entire state. It became a national story because of how heinous this crime was and everything that took place. And we're going to dive into the details of it because some of the details now, looking back at it, you know, almost 20 years ago that this happened. You look at it, it's like, man, there was a lot of dropped or missed opportunities to be able to actually have possibly rescued her or even prevent it from even happening. And we'll talk about Jessica's law that
Mhm.
help strengthen a lot of those laws to help prevent these things from happening again. So
Absolutely. So this took place in Homosassa, which is just a fun town to say, by the way.
yeah,
Ho
Homosassa.
Homosassa, Florida. Um, we're gonna share my screen here so you guys can kinda see where we're at. We're on the West Coast of Florida here. You guys know how I like the maps. I do enjoy the maps. Um,
Yeah,
we're
that's north of Tampa there,
Yeah, it's north of Tampa. Um,
and south of Gainesville, Tallahassee.
Gainesville, that's the town I was thinking of,
Yep.
Gainesville. So we're here in Homosassa, and Jessica Lunsford was a young girl. She was born on October 6th, 1995 to parents Mark and Angela in North Carolina. She had a
Hmm.
couple of older siblings, but they were all teenagers by the time she was born. Angela had had several miscarriages in between her older kids and when Jessica was born, and people were, she thought that Jessica was a miracle baby because she didn't think she was going to be able to have another child. And
Right.
turns out she did. Miscarriages are so tough.
Yeah, and then Mark and his wife, I think, separated or divorced. So
Yeah,
when this crime took place, she was staying with her father.
exactly. Yeah, Angela, after they divorced when Jessica was about a year old, and her mom moved to Ohio, and Mark decided to move to Homosassa. I'm going to say it as much as I can. Decided to move to Homosassa, which is where his parents lived, and they actually lived right here on Sonata Avenue, and it was in this house here. They It was a double wide trailer, but these are, Florida trailers are different than trailer parks in other parts of the country where some of them are really nice. This is
Yeah,
one of the nice ones. This is
yeah. They trailers. I used to turn my nose up to the thought of living in a trailer until you start looking at how
Mhm.
far that manufactured homes, I guess, have come. That's what they basically are referred
Yeah,
as to is manufactured
exactly.
homes, and they're just as nice as a brick and mortar home on the
Mhm.
inside and things like that. But anyway,
Yeah, actually, Dave and I, were thinking about moving to Tennessee.
Homosassa. Oh,
Not Homosassa. But we're thinking about moving to Tennessee, and one of the things when we bought this house is I'm like, no pre-manufactured, no trailer homes but now we're looking at real estate up there, and some of them are, like, way nicer than some of the older houses, like, the new manufactured homes
for
are
sure.
actually nicer than so anyway, they're not it's not one of the how you make a list for your real estate agent, of do's like yeses and nos? It's not on the no list anymore, so I am open to touring one is what I'm
Eh,
saying.
that's a white person thing. Real estate agents. I just go around driving in neighborhoods. I'm like, I like that house.
I like that house, I think I'll buy it.
It just
Um, okay, so Jessica was definitely a daddy's girl. Like I said, they moved in with his parents, which was working out, both because his parents were older and needed help, like day-to-day help, because of their age, and because his parents were able to help take care of Jessica too, because he worked a lot. He was in construction,
yeah, certainly
and
did.
some of these days he was working like 15-hour days,
Hmm.
which is I can't even imagine, actually leaving the house and going to work for 15 hours and then coming home. Like, you have no time to do anything but sleep and then go back to work. So it was good that his mom was there. His mom and Jessica were very close, and she took very good care of her. And it was nice to have a woman in Jessica's life as well, since her biological mother had moved to Ohio by this point.
Right.
They would go, they would have these play fights. This is one of the stories that stuck out to me where or like play arguments about who would love each other more. And, she'd be like, I love you this much, I love you this much. And then eventually one of them that would go like this, I love you this much. And it was that went all the way around the world and back the other side. And then that's the winner of the argument of who loves who more, which I just thought was adorable. I love you infinity, basically, is what that was. He would take her on motorcycle rides, which seems very dangerous, and I would not allow my children on motorcycle rides, but to each their own. My husband's family, my husband's dad rides a motorcycle, and all of the grandkids and stuff have been on motorcycle rides with with grandpa. So I know it's a thing that people do. I just don't feel comfortable with it personally, you know.
Yeah, and what the motorcycle riding he probably did was more of that cruising motorcycle
Yeah, just
riding.
around the neighborhood, probably
Right,
not out on busy streets or anything
right.
like that. They would sing karaoke together at the local bar, I guess. But in rural areas like this, the bar is more of a meeting place. You know, it's not like the bar in a city where it's just all um, over 21
Right.
people in there. I can remember going to bars in Wisconsin with my family. Uh, my aunt had a vacation home that we would use sometimes on a lake in Wisconsin, and there was a bar in that community that we would go to and have dinner, and there was an arcade, and it
Yeah,
was
almost like a dive den, right?
yeah, exactly. It was more like that. He wasn't taking her to bars. Like
Yeah,
he was actually a really good dad. Um, from
which
what
is
I
interesting because as we cover the story, we'll see how they tried to change the narrative that he wasn't.
It's crazy. Just because he has long hair, he rides a motorcycle, he smokes cigarettes, like, this does not make for a bad father. These things that they're listing off of why he was a bad dad,
Mhm.
and he worked too much, you know.
Yeah,
But he was providing for his little girl, you know. She was a good student. She had a lot of friends. She had said when she grows up, she wants to be an Olympic swimmer or a fashion designer, which is not exactly the same category of things. But she had big dreams, is the point. She had big dreams. She was 9 years old. Um, you know,
yeah, you're allowed to have those types of dreams when you're 9 years old. You know, that range from the spectrum of things that don't make sense. You're like, you want to do this and that? They're like, yeah.
she could have done it too. Like just from what people said about her, she had a lot of tenacity and could have done anything with her life. Another thing that I saw is that she had a dog, which I always have to bring up because, as you guys know, I am very fond of my dog, Xena, who's taking a nap right now. If any of you want to wake her up, you know what to do, by the way. She had a dog named Corky, who was a dachshund mix.
Okay.
All right, so now this is going to be the tough part, Frank. February 23rd, 2005. Normal Wednesday. Jessica goes to school. Her grandma Ruth picks her up from school, which was like what they did. That was their normal schedule, their normal thing. So Ruth picks her up from school. They run a couple of errands, and then they were big in their church there. So there was a church service that night, and a friend of the family picked her up. Sharon Armstrong picked her up to go to the church service together. That's just the normal Wednesday night service. And then after the service, Sharon used to tutor Jessica as well, and they were learning some sign language together. And the last thing that, then after the sign language tutoring, she took her home about 9 o'clock and dropped her off. And Jessica walked up to the front door. And as she was walking in the door, she turned around and signed, "I love you," to Sharon, and then walked in the door. And the interview that I watched with Sharon Armstrong, she just remembers that's the last time she saw Jessica alive. And just telling the story is making my voice break because she was just crying during this story, and it's just so heartbreaking.
It is.
This little girl touched so many people's lives. Mark had gotten home from work around the same time, and they decided to spend time together, which he would do as much as possible. He was such a good dad. They were best friends, him and his daughter, and they watched some TV together. They wrestled on the couch a little bit, and then about 10 o'clock, it was time for bed. And as the routine was, Ruth would bathe Jessica and put her to bed in the evenings. And as she was going into the bathroom to take a bath, she gave her dad a hug and said, "If I don't see you," because dad was going out for a date that night with a woman, and she said, "If I don't see you, I wanted to give you a hug and tell you I love you before I go to bed." And she did that, and Mark left to go on his date to his girlfriend's house, and Ruth put Jessica to bed, and everything was completely normal. Just a completely normal Wednesday night.
You're right.
Mark's plan was to spend the night at his girlfriend's house and then come home the next morning and get ready for work, get Jessica up for school, all of that. do his normal dad stuff that he did in the morning.
Yeah, like most crimes that happen, it always seems like it's always been a normal day up until the thing happens.
Exactly. So, February 24th, 2005, he comes home about 6 a.m. On the 24th, he gets home and he hears Jessica's alarm going off in her room. It would have just gone off, and he sort of ignores it for a minute and starts to go get ready because he thought it was just normal. She was just maybe groggy, not getting up right away. So he goes and gets ready. And a few minutes later, he hears it still going off. And he thought that was weird. So he goes into her room to see like what's going on. Why is she not? She's sleeping through her alarm. I need to wake her up, and she's gone. And they figure out the only things missing from her room are the nightgown she was wearing, and a stuffed animal that he had won for her at the fair.
Yeah, I think that was a dolphin, if I remember correctly.
Correct. It was a purple stuffed dolphin. And you had said the fair was going on at that time, and I was thinking, because the fair here in Georgia always happens in the fall, so I was thinking it had happened the previous fall, but I think I was wrong about that.
Yeah, the Florida State Fair happens in February. Every year, so it would have happened right in that time frame of the Florida State Fair, maybe a couple days after the fair had already ended, because it goes to Florida State Fair, and then it goes to Strawberry Festival, which is just a couple weeks later.
Maybe I'll have to come down for the Strawberry Festival. That sounds fun.
Strawberry Festival is fun, especially if you like strawberries. Strawberry shortcake.
I love strawberries. I love strawberry shortcake, chocolates covered like anything strawberry is good. It's good in my book, for sure. So he realizes Jessica's not in her bed. He immediately wakes his mom up and says, "Jessica's gone. Where is she?" They check everywhere in the house. They noticed that the front door was unlocked, and the screen door, there was a cut on the screen part of the screen door in an L shape about 6 inches by 6 inches, right near where the handle is, where somebody could cut it and reach in and unlatch the little latch on the screen door and open it up.
So the inside door was unlocked.
The inside door, well, they were both unlocked, but the screen door was locked when they went to bed. It would just stay locked all the time.
Right. But the door into the house, the actual door, because you have your screen door, then you have your regular door, that door was unlocked.
Exactly. Yep. And it's, I mean, you can see it's a rural area. People don't lock their doors in places like this. You should, by the way, if you live in a place like this, lock your door.
In Homosassa.
Yeah. Just anywhere that's that's like this. There's so many places around the country that people don't lock their doors.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Chicago, and when I was a kid, we didn't lock our door. I don't know what we were thinking. But come to think of it, I can't remember our door ever being locked. For the most part, somebody was always home.
Yeah.
But still, the door would remain unlocked. Like, even we would all go to church on Sundays, and we didn't lock the door when we were leaving for church. I don't know. Did you lock your door growing up?
We would. I was a latch. What were they called? Latchkey kids. Yeah. So our doors were always locked. Growing up. However, living where we live in the rural area, we tend not to lock our door as much as we probably should.
What are you doing, Frank? After this story, you're going to start, after we go over this, you're going to start locking your doors. I hope. I'll call your wife. I have her number.
Well, I'm hoping the FBI shows up or whatever one day. They don't break down the door. They just go to try to open it first. So that way there won't be as much damage to the house.
Gotcha. Since we're off subject, we're going to take a little break and give Zena a snack. Ray gifted 1 membership
Woo!
Parson has been a member for 3 months. Parson also donated $2. Thank you so much. And Ray Ray's membership, she just renewed for 3 months. So I appreciate all of you. I don't think I missed anybody. No, so I have 3 milk bones for Xena. I guess I should put her on the screen for this.
Yeah. Time to wake up, Xena. Wake up.
Xena, guess what? Ray Ray and Parson love you. They do. Could you sit up, maybe? She's trying to shake silly. You gotta sit up. Thank you. Talk about lazy. Yeah, fist bump. Thank you. Do another shake. Perfect. She wasn't going to sit up for that. She was just going to lay there and be like, all right, take my hand.
She's like, bro, I was napping. I don't want to get up.
Thank you, Xena. All right. So back into it. Thank you, by the way. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. So they immediately, Mark realizes she's missing, wakes up Mom, and Mom calls the police while Mark jumps in his car and starts driving around the neighborhood.
I can't even imagine the panic that he is going through at that time right then and there. Your child is missing, and you coming home, and then everything seemed normal right when he first got there, but then the coming to the realization that she is not there and what could have happened, all the unknowns, everything hitting him all at once. I'm sure going into the neighborhood, screaming or yelling for her name, sounding like a maniac. I think every parent would, because it's the only thing you know what to do. You feel so helpless at that situation. You try to take on anything that you can do to make yourself feel as that you're going to accomplish something.
I know the panic I felt when Ava was a puppy and I got home from work and she wasn't here. She had gotten out of the fence. I know the panic I felt over a dog who, by the way, we had only had for a couple months at the time. So I wasn't even really that attached to her. But to have your child, who is described by everyone who knows you as your best friend, their best friends, go missing. And these sort of houses don't have like basements or attics and stuff where she could be hiding.
Right.
Nothing like that. So it seems like it'd be a pretty quick search to find out that she's not there.
Correct.
So the mom calls 911. The police come almost immediately, and they automatically, the grandma and dad know she didn't run away because she was scared of the dark. She had a very happy life. She wouldn't have gone anywhere. But because she's scared of the dark, and as you can see, this area doesn't have like streetlights or anything. It's very dark out there. Yeah. She wouldn't have gone anywhere. She even slept with a nightlight still, One of the things that I love about Ruth, grandma, is that she had fingerprints done by the Stranger Danger program in the area for Jessica. So she had a little card for, if I ever go missing, here's my fingerprints. It had like her height and weight and hair color, a photo of her, but she had that on hand ready for the officer. Juan Santiago was his name, showed up at the house, and she had that ready to give to him. Which is amazing, a precaution to take. If you have kids that are young, have this done. It doesn't hurt to just have it somewhere in a file somewhere. I can remember having this done at Blockbuster Video when I was a kid. They had
probably got a free rental for doing it.
Something like that. But I can remember my mom taking me up there and having a little fingerprint card done with my fingerprints as a kid. So it really doesn't hurt to have. And Ruth had this done. And
I think I had one done as a kid as well. I just can't remember. I think I did. I think my parents got one done for me.
It was right around, we're about the same age. It was right around the time when all of these programs are being put into place.
Yeah, Stranger Danger.
Yeah, Stranger Danger.
And now we meet people from the internet that are strangers.
Yeah, exactly. In Walmart parking lots or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Hey, you're here to buy my coffee maker?
Yeah,
Nope,
yeah,
I'm here to kidnap you.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Deputy Santiago did a quick, peripheral search of the home just to make sure they didn't miss her. And he immediately called for backup, and right away, these officers in Citrus County were on it. You know how sometimes you'll hear stories where they're like, "Oh, you have to wait 24
24
hours
hours.
or
Yep.
48 hours or whatever to reports." Not these cops. These cops are like, "We are on it." They got search parties going. They got scent dogs going. They had dive teams checking the local
Springs.
yeah, I assume in Florida there's a lot of water, different
Well,
places
yeah.
near
Well,
here.
Homosassa, they're known for having springs in that
Yeah.
area there
Look
as
at all
well.
these little tiny
They,
all these little tiny bodies of water right near there.
right.
Um, just everywhere around there. So they got dive teams in all these little lakes, which is great. Although that's not where she was, but it doesn't hurt. They had searcher parties on horseback so they could cover
Area.
more area. The forensic teams were in their house immediately, taking fingerprints, picking up fibers. They vacuumed the whole house and collected the whatever comes up in the vacuum to sort through as evidence immediately. They set up a van,
Yeah.
like a home base for right in front of their house. Let's see. The first person they investigated heavily was Mark. They tracked his dump truck route. He drove a dump truck for his work the day before. He had a long day. That was like 15-hour day, remember? So they
Yep.
tracked his route and checked all the places he had stopped to make sure she wasn't there, which was kind of a waste of time, but I can see why they would do that.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been a waste of time, but
Mhm.
I think they say statistically the
Mhm.
parents are normally involved in a child's disappearance. I think that's what they say. I'm not sure. I'm
Or
not big.
somebody that the child knows, not a
Right.
stranger. It's
Right.
statistically improbable that it's actually a stranger that abducts a kid. So that's why they did that. They investigated dad first. There's no other adult males in her life necessarily. I mean, I
Mhm.
guess probably school teachers or whatever, but
Right.
that were close to her. So they did investigate him very thoroughly before they ruled him out as a suspect. The other thing that Citrus County did very well, in my opinion, is they called in the Florida Bureau of Investigation and the FBI within days of the disappearance,
Mm.
which a lot of times these police departments, they
Drag their
want
feet.
they want to solve it themselves, but they realized right away that it was way above their head. They don't
Not
have
enough resources.
yeah, they don't have cases like that at this place, so they're just not used to it, you know. And the FBI got the word out almost immediately to it went countrywide pretty fast, the news
Yeah.
and stuff. While she was still missing,
But
it was
even
all over the news.
with them within days, those first 48 hours were the most crucial in this,
Mhm.
especially this case.
Yep,
You
exactly.
you've watched that show, the first 48.
Mhm.
That's the time frame that you're in, and that was the most, especially in this case here. That was the most crucial time.
Yeah. Exactly, and the community got very involved as well. This community seems like an amazing community to live in. There was hundreds of volunteers would meet every morning at Faith Baptist Church, which is where Jessica and her family attended church.
Hmm.
But so all of these volunteers, hundreds of volunteers would meet there every morning while she was missing, and they could cover large areas, searching large areas. For any clues, any of her clothing, and anything at all that would lead to some sort of clue of where she went. which hundreds of volunteers in this rural area it's like everybody showed up for this, you
Yeah.
know. Mike Hamilton, who was a former pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, lived in this community now. He was retired and he lived in Homosassa, Florida. Not only did he live there, but his son, was in Jessica's same class. And also, their birthdays was just one day apart. So they celebrated their birthday together, Jessica and his son, a lot of times because their birthday was one day apart. So, in school, you would have your birthday celebration or whatever. So he and his wife offered a $25,000 reward for the safe return of Jessica Lunsford, the 9-year-old who disappeared from her Florida bedroom 4 days ago. So this is within days of her being missing.
Yeah, and I remember this. We're like hanging by every newscast that would come on to see what was happening in that case. Being south of the area there, we were Tampa to Homosassa. I think it's just about an hour and a half, roughly hour and 45 minutes away, and so it's still considered in our area. And
exactly,
we were I remember following the newspapers and stuff like that. What's going on? What are they doing? Have they found her yet?
Yeah. It seems like one of those cases that if it happened where I lived, I would follow along with. Like when I covered the Meredith Emerson case on my channel, that was one that I followed along with as it was happening. So it hit really close to home when they figured out that it was a serial killer. By the way, that also had a Florida connection because he killed some people in Florida too.
Right.
But yeah, every day, this is when I still had regular TV. I think most people still had TV. I haven't had TV in years, but where you would watch the 5 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news. And it was the leading story every day. And the same thing with Jessica's case. In that area, I assume that this was like all of the news coverage.
It was the AM lead. It was the 12 o'clock, lunchtime lead. And of course the evening lead.
Yep.
For days on end.
Exactly. Probably until she was found, even after
she was found, because they followed the lead up to the arrest, the trial, and all that stuff that went along with it.
Yeah. So Mike Hamilton donated that $25,000 for a reward to find her, and that got national attention because he was a Braves player, a famous pitcher, I guess. I don't know anything about sports ball, but apparently it's a big deal. And all of these donations started rolling in from other people who just saw the story of this Braves pitcher making this donation. And the reward got up to $115,000 really quickly for the safe return of Jessica. And I think it also was for anything that led to the arrest of whoever did this.
Right. Yeah.
So I wanted to show you, I found a story out of the Los Angeles Times. This is how far it had spread to where even in the Los Angeles Times, they were running stories here of Jessica's disappearance as far away as Los Angeles. And this was while she was still missing. So this was within days of her being kidnapped in Los Angeles, which I thought was amazing how far and wide the story spread and how much the community came together as well in this case. Unfortunately, that was not enough to, keep Jessica safe.
Yeah, it unfortunately did not. We wouldn't be talking about this if she was returned safely.
Exactly. So meanwhile, the police had set up a command center outside the Lunsford home. Mark would make pleas every evening on the news to the community for the safe return of his daughter. The police put out a photo. They had this lead that came in of this photo that was taken of a man that had 2 kids with him, and one of the kids looked like Jessica. Now, This guy was not Jessica's kidnapper. These kids were not Jessica, neither of them. But it gave the community false hope that they were coming close to making an arrest. As soon as this guy saw his picture on the news, he came forward and is like, "No, this is my kids. Like, here they are. They're alive and well." That's me. Like,
the early 2000s was pretty wild. I mean, we were on the very infancy of the internet, right? And so we were still like, people were still relying on like these photos that were taken, and then they would give them to the newscasters and they would put them on TV. It wasn't something that we could like look up on the web and find the photo ourselves as like, oh yeah, that isn't him or that isn't them. It's just such a wild time now that we have all this information now in the time that we live.
Exactly. So this poor guy, I kind of feel bad for him, because could you imagine following? He's in the community, so he's following along with the story also. Then all of a sudden to see
his photo shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. He is probably crapping himself like, oh my gosh, they think I kidnapped this girl. But that was straightened out pretty quickly. But they were really just grasping at straws.
Yeah, they were trying to take any lead that they could find at this point. Again, the first 48 hours is such an important part of an investigation, and if you're outside that 48 hours, things start to get really, really dire, and you start looking for anything that you might be able to latch onto that might be a lead.
Exactly. So the police started to they thought that this could be a sex crime, so they looked up the list of sex offenders in the area, and there were 208 sex offenders in the area, which is like, that's a lot.
That's a lot in that area.
Yeah, and 50 of them lived near the Lunsford home, within like a couple of miles of the Lunsford home.
That's even crazier.
Like, this one's, it makes me want to like look up the sex offender list in my area now just to see.
And would the FBI be involved with just in a couple of days? That you would figure that that would have been like one of the first things they would have looked at. How many sex offenders are in the area? How many are within the radius
all
of the
them.
house? Yeah,
all of them are there.
All of them live in Homosassa, apparently.
Yeah.
No, not really,
or the surrounding counties. Yeah, exactly. They all live. It was like, I think the original list of 208 is Citrus County and the surrounding counties. Okay. So it's not just Homosassa, but it's still a very small area to have 208 registered sex offenders. Like, that's not even the guys that haven't been caught yet. That's just the ones who got caught and are registered, So 50 of them are like within a couple of miles of the Lunsford home, and the police began knocking on all of these doors, and one guy stuck out to them because they knocked on his door and he didn't live there anymore. His name was John Cooey. And they said, oh, he moved in with his sister. And the cops were like, well, where does the sister live? Turns out, let's bring this map back up. I'll show you where his sister lived, where he was staying at the time.
This was crazy. I didn't realize how close he was staying to the Lunsfords until I went back and started researching for this case.
I lost the... Here it is. So the Lunsfords lived here in this house. This house. And he lived here. So within eye shot.
Across the street.
Across the street. Yes. Right there.
5 yards. That's less than a football field.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a lot. Like, you could see his backyard from their front porch. That's correct. How close. Which will come into play here in a second. Excuse me. I'm losing my voice. Not great for a podcast, by the way.
not good at all. I know the feeling.
So
this guy should have been like prime suspect number one if they would have looked at this registry much earlier on into this investigation. Exactly
that. So luckily, though, they did figure it out pretty quickly, that he was living at this address literally across the street, where you could see
Jessica's house from there. Now, when we get into the details here,
Mm.
I just have a lot of questions about the family that he was
Mm-hmm.
living with there,
Yeah.
about their knowledge of the things that took place.
Pretty sus,
Pretty
as the
sus.
kids say. Pretty sus.
Pretty sus. I don't even think they say sus anymore, by the way. I think that's already outdated.
Oh,
The
what do
kids are
they
not saying
say?
that any longer.
Let me know what the updated terminology is for that.
I feel like that meme with the old dude with the small cap and the
Yeah.
skateboard. How you teens doing?
Hello, fellow
Yeah.
teenagers. The other thing, okay, so then they go to this guy's trailer and they knock on the door, and his sister and the other people living there are like, don't know where he is, haven't seen him, and they're
Right.
like, well, the people at his old house said he was living here, and they're like, I don't know, he left a few days ago. He left just days after Jessica went missing is when he left.
Mhm.
They went into the house that day right away because they did a canvas door to door right when Jessica went missing, and they were inside this guy's living room while he was still there, and he had stepped out the back door and didn't talk to the cops. And then after that happened, he fled the state. Just the missed opportunities in this.
And the reason they were there, the dogs had picked up a scent in that area.
Yeah, and led him across the street.
That's it. They led him across the street to that house,
Mm-hmm.
to that exact same house,
And they never searched the house.
They did not pursue it any further than that. Just okay.
Like, I was torn on this, Frank, when they said they didn't search the house. I'm like, if they would have just searched the house, they would have
found her. They would have found her alive.
But on the other hand, if a cop knocks on my door and wants to search my house and I had nothing to do with it, I don't know if I don't know. Like, I don't think the cop should legally be able to. I think you should let them in and say,
I
search.
agree to the point that, but if they had the sense for the dogs there, they should have pursued it even harder with saying, hey, we need a warrant to search this place.
That's true. They didn't even try to get a warrant to search
right?
it.
We have a strong suspicion. We got scents out here. The dogs led us here.
Mm-hmm.
We need confirmation.
Exactly.
We're beyond now reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah.
Or reasonable suspicion, or whatever they call it. To look.
They basically saw inside the living room and left and didn't pursue it anymore.
Right. I mean, would they really keep the body inside the living room?
No, probably not.
Probably
just
not, right?
laid out on the living room floor.
Yeah, they're like, oh, look here. No, of course not.
And especially when they said, no, you can't search the house, that would be even more, I think, ammunition to get a judge to say, yeah, here's a warrant.
Yeah.
Although I know it's not supposed to work like that because of the Fourth Amendment, but it really in real life works like that.
And at that point, I would have stationed a cop or a couple patrol cars right outside the residence to monitor what was happening until we got that warrant.
None of that happened.
Yeah. I know. It makes me so angry. Going back to the story.
Exactly. So they look up Cooey, the sex offender, and it turns out he has.
I hate that name. That name, man. Cooey, man.
Yeah, John Cooey. Ooh.
You think of that. I haven't seen a picture of him in a long time. But you hear that name, and it already gives you like perv,
creepy vibes.
Creepy perv, man.
Yeah. So he has arrests for burglary, carrying a concealed weapon, so many drunk driving arrests that his driver's license was suspended for 99 years.
Wow.
Cocaine possession, breaking and entering. One of the houses he broke and entered into, he found a young girl there and sexually assaulted her, which is why he's on the sex offender list.
And so, she was a minor, obviously.
The exact same thing that happened to Jessica, but he did not kill this girl. He just sexually assaulted her and left. So the police obviously put out a warrant for his arrest, but the warrant is not for the sex, not for the abduction of Jessica. It's for violating his probation by not reporting his address change. On March 12th, 2005, so less than a month later, or a little more than a month later, less than a month later, they find him in Savannah, Georgia, and the police pick him up. A volunteer at the Salvation Army recognized him, and as of course following, like, from where we are in Homosassa to Savannah, Georgia, it's like 300 miles, so it's still in the area, kind of,
Yeah. And especially with having national coverage, anywhere in the U.S. would be in
Mhm.
the area at that point.
Exactly. So this volunteer at the Salvation Army recognized him and says, "Hey, he's here. Come get come get him." Um, the one thing I forgot to say is that so they suspected Cooey, and instead of like putting out his name and his face right away, they make this announcement on TV saying there's a person of interest who is a sex offender who fled the area. You know who you are. If you don't come back here in 48 hours, we're going to put out a warrant for your arrest. I don't know why they would do that. Why not just go get him?
Yeah. Yeah, for
Um,
real. Instead of actually, putting the picture out there and say, "Hey, if you know where this guy is, call us."
Yeah, instead they wasted 2 days giving him the opportunity to return on his own, which he didn't do, obviously.
Obviously. Like, "Oh,
Uh,
yeah, you guys got me."
yeah, exactly. But that was just a little tidbit that I came across that I thought was so odd that why would they do that? Why wouldn't you just
I'm issuing you an ultimatum.
yeah, come back or we're gonna get you. Just go get him.
Yeah.
Forget about that. And of course, at that time, they didn't have all of the evidence that they end up getting, so they don't know for sure that he did it. He was a suspect. He was a
Yeah.
very strong suspect, and like the look at how close he was. Come on.
Yeah.
So this volunteer calls the police. They pick him up on the probation violation for not reporting his address change, and they interview him. And he, of course, claims, like, I don't know anything about Jessica Lunsford. I'd never seen her before her picture was on the news, and have no idea what you're talking about. And so the police don't believe him, and they get a warrant, finally get a warrant for the sister's trailer.
Yes.
Finally. They could have done this before, but they didn't. But they find in the room he was staying in a large blood stain on the mattress.
Yep.
2 different pillows with blood stains on it.
Inside his closet.
Yeah, inside his closet, which we find out later that that's where he was keeping her. One of the police officers who originally responded to Jessica's disappearance took a bunch of photos from every direction from the house, like seeing what the view is in every direction. And
That patrolman actually had really good instincts.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. One of the pictures shows this house where Cooey was, and it shows up against his bedroom window. There's a ladder leading up to his window.
Yeah.
Which was weird, but they asked Cooey about that, and he's got an answer for everything. He's like, well, there's a ladder there because I put an antenna on my sister's roof so I can get TV, like, signal, and I just never put the ladder away. Which I guess is an explanation. I don't know why it was up to the window and not the roof, but okay.
Yeah.
At this point, they had enough evidence to bring Cooey into custody for the kidnapping. Yeah, for the disappearance. So they go back to Savannah, but he's gone. He's out of there. They didn't keep him in custody either, which is another mistake, in my opinion. For the probation violation, they just had him fill out the new paperwork for, correct
address change,
and all that, and they let him go. So they put out another APB for him, and they find him in Augusta, Georgia, which is not too far. It's like a couple hours from Savannah.
A little north, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little north of Savannah.
Exactly. So they find him, they arrest him. He claims that the mattress was purchased
with a
second hand, and it already had bloodstains on it. So he doesn't know.
I buy bloodstained mattresses all the time. I'm like, hey, do you have bloodstained mattresses in here? That's what I need.
Could you imagine, even from like Facebook Marketplace?
Did he find them in a tunnel? No, I'm just kidding.
Like, yeah, in New York. Okay, he bought it from New York in a tunnel. But I don't care how poor you are. You're not buying a mattress with bloodstains on it.
No.
Like, I would prefer to have a mattress that I found in somebody's alley, like just thrown out, discarded, with no bloodstains on it, than to purchase a bloodstained mattress from somebody.
Yeah.
Like, that's just insane to me. And then, of course, they ask him about the ladder, and he's got that story about the antenna,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't make sense to me, but
No.
the cops
And
apparently bought it.
and so they run the DNA on the mattresses, and they come
Mhm.
back as Jessica's and his.
His semen, her blood.
Right.
And he's still claiming, like, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how that got there. No idea. So they ask him to take a lie detector test, which he does. Now, in the meantime, he's been asking for a lawyer. This is going to come back in the trial, but he's been asking for a lawyer 8 different times. He asked for a lawyer, and they just kept questioning him. And they finally hook him up to a lie detector test. So the FBI does this lie detector test. And once the lie detector test is complete, he says, you don't need to tell me the results. I already know what they are. Please have the detectives come back in. Okay. So they don't even analyze the lie detector. The detectives come back in, and he confesses to sexually assaulting or abducting, sexually assaulting, and murdering Jessica Lunsford.
Yes.
And then he apologized for wasting everyone's time.
So noble of him to apologize. So courteous of him.
It's so infuriating. This next part is just going to make you so mad. I know you know the story, but all of you watching right now, this next part is going to make you so mad when you hear how this thing went down and how the police just dropped the ball so much. So his confession, he broke into the Lunsfords' home to rob them. But then he came across Jessica sleeping peacefully in her bed, and he decided to abduct her. This is the difficult. I had a difficulty even writing these notes. I'm going to have difficulty getting through them. So he brought her across the street to the trailer that he was staying in at his sister's house. He forced her up that ladder that really didn't make sense about the antenna. It's because it was there because he had gone out of the window and brought her back into the window that night. Over the next 3 days, he periodically sexually abused her. He kept her locked in the closets. He only fed her one time a hamburger, which is what they found when they did end up finding her. That was the only food that was in her body. The police were canvassing the neighborhood when Jessica first went missing. They were inside of that house twice. And both times
she was still alive.
She was still alive and in the closet. Both times. And the first time, or one of the times anyway, he was there too and just like stepped out of the back door and waited outside for them to leave. And his family that was living there is like, yeah, we haven't seen it. We don't know. We're the only people here, you know. He had told Jessica that if she makes a sound, he would kill her. So she stayed quiet in the closet.
Of course, a 9-year-old girl, of course, with that type of threat. And then he's already hurt her.
Yeah. And I bet she could hear the police there talking.
I'm sure.
To her. Mm-hmm. All right. After the third day, after the police had come, and he got spooked, he ended up killing her. What he did is he brought her outside, had her get into a black trash can or trash bag.
After he had promised her that he was going to take her back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to take you back. It was under the pretext that, hey, get in these bags and I'm going to take you back across the street to your house.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. He digs a hole in the backyard, 2 feet down, and he puts her into these trash bags. It's her thinking that he's going to put her in there and then take her to her house and let her out. He ends up burying her inside of these trash bags in the backyard. Well, the police were at the Lunsford's house across the street. This all happened while the police were there. I paused the video. I don't want to show this video because I'll get a copyright strike. But I'm going to show you in this documentary that I watched. It shows the command center and how it was just totally blocking. The Lunsford house is here and his house is across the street over here.
Mm-hmm.
It was just completely blocking the view of his backyard. So he was able to dig a hole, a grave, into the backyard, bring her out of a window, put her in trash bags, and put her in the ground and bury her alive.
And because of all this evidence and information we have, I do not believe the story of the family that was staying there.
There's no way. There's no way. All of this commotion going on outside of their house, and you don't
You don't see your dude out there digging a hole
digging a grave in the backyard.
with
It's
garbage bags,
insane. Yeah, exactly. It's insane.
and it's just shocking to me that there was no other charges brought to the
Mhm.
people that were living there as well with him,
Mhm.
abetting, right?
Yeah, exactly. By the way,
Accessory too.
if this story interests you, I highly suggest checking out this documentary. It's free on YouTube. It's called Jesse's Dad, and it's really good. I highly suggest checking it out. After this, by the way, watch the rest of this first. He he ended up, he didn't want to kill Jessica. He couldn't bring himself to do that, so he ended up
Such a
just
coward.
burying her alive. When they found her body
This
weeks
is gonna make you
later,
mad. This is gonna make you mad.
this is going to make you mad. Her wrists were tied together with speaker wire, and she had poked 2 of her little fingers through the trash bag, trying to breathe in an attempt to escape. And her arms were wrapped around that purple stuffed dolphin that her dad had won for her at the state fair.
Yeah.
Man,
They
the facts of this case is heartbreaking.
the autopsy revealed that she had suffocated within a couple minutes of being in the bags.
Mhm.
Maybe that information was given to make Jess's dad feel better, I guess, that she didn't suffer, I suppose, for
Mhm.
a prolonged period in those bags. But it infuriated me when I was, again, going back through this case, reading the details. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
It's like, that video that circulates on the internet, the dad that shoots the guy that
Yes.
sexually abused his son or whatever. That is what needed to happen to that guy.
That's another story I should cover. That's another one I'll bring you back on for. We're just gonna once a month we'll just do a show together. How about
That's
that?
it. That's it.
So there was 4 other adults living in this trailer where this happened. 4 adults.
And their stories are so BS that they
So
give to the
BS.
police.
Yeah.
We didn't go into the room. We didn't
No.
notice anything from the room. We didn't notice any noises or anything.
Mm-hmm. How do you not hear a 9-year-old girl getting raped next door? And it's a trailer house. It's not like there's thick walls. Like in my regular house, I would hear something next door.
Right, and I don't think their trailer that they were living in was your typical double wide trailer, not the
It was a single wide.
It was a single wide. So those walls are super thin, narrow hallways, and you can hear basically anything that happens in any room inside one of those houses.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in my house, my laundry room is behind this wall right here, and if I'm gonna go live, I have to stop the laundry going on just because it's you can hear stuff happen in the house, like any house.
Any house, yeah.
So there's Dorothy Dixon.
So infuriating. I'm sorry. I'm just so.
I know this case will make anybody who hears it will be mad at this case. Dorothy Dixon, 47-year-old, was John Cooey's sister. Her boyfriend Matthew Dietrich also lived there. His niece Maddie, I'm going to pronounce his name, Secord. Maddie Secord lived there as well, as along with Gene Secord, which was Maddie's husband. So these are 4 adults. Apparently, the word around the neighborhood is these are all drug users. They're not I think the quote from the chief of police was, these are not the type of neighbors that you would borrow a cup of sugar from. So it's the house that everyone just sort of stayed away from. A bunch of lowlifes lived there. I apologize to anybody who lived there who's no longer a lowlife, but at the time you were described as a lowlife. But people change and they might be fine now. I don't know. This is 20 years ago, right? There was a time in my life where people would have considered me a lowlife, is all I'm saying, right? So this is the part of the story where Jessica's dad goes to work to make sure this does not happen to anybody else. I skipped the part where we had Jessica's memorial service. 1,000 people attended Jessica's memorial. 1,000 different people showed up. the day for this memorial service, which is just goes back to show how this community stuck together behind this little girl and her family. It just was amazing to me, the amount of people. Not only that, but they had another memorial service in Ohio where her mom lived, and 300 people in Ohio showed up. None of whom, like Jessica, had never even lived in Ohio. Her mom moved there after the divorce,
Yeah.
and 300 people showed up to that one as well. But they did a balloon release, which, by the way, you probably shouldn't do anymore. We know better now, right?
Why shouldn't we do balloon releases?
Because of the animals, and they get stuck in the pelicans' throats and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because we like the environment, Frank. We like the environment, right? Right, Frank? We like the environment.
You know, the Anakin and Padme meme,
Yeah.
right?
Right? We like the environment. Like, just there's other ways to, Anyway, we're getting off subject here.
You have a super chat in there for Xena. Before we go into the next part here.
Thank you so much, Erica. Let me get Xena up on the screen.
Yeah, a little cleanser, a little palate cleanser.
A little palate cleanser. This is a perfect stopping point too.
She knows.
She knows. Thank you so much, Erica. I appreciate you so much. And Xena appreciates you even more. Giving Xena diabetes over here. Can you sit up for this one, you think? Okay, I guess not. There you go. Thank you. And while we're excuse me. Oops. While we're stopped, if you want, I wanted to show you guys, I did update the merch store. If you want to purchase anything, I did update the new Crimeland merch section. So we have the new logo on some merchandise there in the merch store. This week sometime I will get the new Friday Night Crime logo updated in here as well. We also have some new Stephen Ignoramus merchandise too, but you don't have to buy that. But if you want it, it's here too. It is. I made him
I want the panda Stephen Ignoramus.
The sad panda.
The sad panda.
Yeah. We're here to sell my merch right now. So the new Crimeland stuff is out, and it looks pretty good. I like the new logo design, if I do say so myself, probably because I'm the one that designed it. But you can still get all of the old stuff. I'm going to leave the old Crimeland logos if you want some of the old stuff. It's still there, but it will be going away very shortly. So if you want some of the old stuff, get it now. Is what I'm saying. All right, continuing on the story. So her dad is an angel sent from heaven, in my opinion. He's done so much work to make sure that this doesn't happen to any more kids. Of course, it's always going to happen, but he's never going to give up. So he started lobbying he started in Florida, but it's gone out to several states now, but for something called the Jessica Lunsford Act. And
Jessica's Law is the informal name given to the 2005 law that passed the Florida legislature and was signed into law by Jeb Bush. It was designed to protect potential victims and reduce the sexual offender's ability to reoffend, which includes a mandatory minimum sentence of 25 years in prison and a lifetime electronic monitoring when the victim is less than 12 years old. And so just recently here in the state of Florida, we've also taken it a step further that if there's, or was it Oklahoma? Now I can't remember. I think Oklahoma did it as well, but now there is death penalty for child pedos.
I know they did it in Florida. They may have done it in Oklahoma as well.
They did do it in Oklahoma. That was the last one I remember. So yeah, we've taken a step further here in Florida and executing them, which should have been like the onset, like the very beginning. That should have been like step one. But anyway. But yeah, this law was basically a stepping stone to where we are right now. Because the 25 minimum of the 25-year sentence now they're now death penalty, right? So that was important because that kind of crime was very just lax for whatever reason.
Exactly. Here's a little video of Mark Lunsford talking about his efforts.
Back in 2005, Mark Lunsford's young daughter, Jessica, was kidnapped and attacked, later killed by a registered sex offender. And now, despite that horrific tragedy, he has found the strength and determination to dedicate his life to preventing child abuse, even helping to pass state laws in his daughter's name. Mark has spent the last few weeks traveling the country, sharing his story and raising awareness, hoping to make a difference. Welcome, Mark Lunsford. Great to have you here today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on.
Well, I have to begin by saying you're a personal hero of mine because I have admired the work that you have done over the years. I can't begin to imagine what it must have been like to live through the horrific tragedy that you have gone through and then take that situation and turn it into something where you are working hard to make a difference to prevent needless deaths of children in the future by the work that you're doing.
It hasn't been easy reliving your own nightmare every time you speak about Jesse's Law, but that's the only way you can get legislators to listen and to grab a hold of them is to tell them the god awful story of what happened. 44 states have now implemented their version of Jesse's Law, and it's not something you can do by yourself. Stop Child Predators, lobbyists, other nonprofit organizations getting involved, and the people working together to get each state to pass this law to toughen up mandatory sentencing, tracking, and knowing where your sex offenders are at.
But you have been successful in getting people to understand that obviously passing laws like this is vital to securing and safeguarding our children.
Well, it's a middle-class world. It's easy for us to talk amongst ourselves. I mean, I couldn't very well talk to a room full of professors of psychology or other things, but I can get across to the American people, and the American people can get across to me. We know how to communicate with each other. Probably something our government could probably learn to do better.
In the weeks ahead, what are you doing right now to raise awareness?
Oh wow! It's just been really a good 2 weeks. We started the cross country for kids ride across America from Sacramento to Washington D.C. Kathleen Despain put this together for me. She and so many other groups. Everybody has just been really great. Secura Track has helped with the transportation. And it's about having a conversation. Conversation is awareness. Awareness is education. Education is power.
Exactly.
Talk about it.
Exactly.
Talk about these things.
Mark, I'm sorry we're out of time now, but we're glad that you could join us. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be checking back with you as you continue on your journey and the good work that you continue to do. Thank you for joining us today.
Always thanking you.
And unfortunately, back in 2005, they did try to introduce this in the federal level, but it was never enacted to law by Congress.
They need to. We need to get this nationwide. Erica in the chat is asking how you can get involved. And I just did a quick Google search and I found a Facebook page I'll put in the chat called the Jessica Lunsford Foundation. And I'm sure all of your links that you would need to get involved, you could probably find there. Although I have not checked it first. I just did a quick Google search. So hopefully that gets you to where you need to be if you do want to get involved. I know so many of my viewers have kids around this age, and it's just such a scary world. And because of Mark Lunsford, he's making it better and safer for kids of that age.
Yeah, seeing her picture up on the screen there when they were playing that video just just tears you up. Seeing that beautiful life extinguished so early.
Exactly. Exactly. She was just a bright light in everyone's life. For everybody who talked about her, definitely. So in February of 2007, I'm sorry, is there anything else you wanted to say about Jessica's Law before I move on to the next?
No, you're good.
Okay, so February 12th, 2007, the trial of John Cooey begins, and they changed the venue. Obviously, they didn't want to try it in Homosassa.
Well, it was originally scheduled to try in Homosassa. However, they couldn't see the jury.
Yeah, they couldn't find a jury there that hadn't heard of the case.
Yeah, because they were all just the immediate attention that area got, and everybody in that town was ready just to string him up there in the courtyard.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine not wanting to after hearing the facts of this case, I
Yeah.
don't understand not wanting to string him up even today, although he's dead already, but we'll get to that.
And
But
I wonder, and before we move on to the case, I wonder if that family that he was staying with there ever moved right after that. I mean, I don't know if you would be able to. I want to know if I would be able to live across the street knowing where my daughter died at the hands of that monster and the people that shielded him.
they did stay there, and the reason I know that, and I didn't put this in my notes, but years later, the trailer where this happened, Cooey's family's trailer burned down. Somebody, it had been abandoned. That family had moved out.
Yeah.
There was not electricity to the trailer, so we know it wasn't an electrical fire, but it burned to the ground. And Grandma was watching TV in her living room and saw something out of the corner of her eye and went and stood by the window for over an hour and watched it burn
I don't blame her.
before anyone called the fire department to come put it out. They
Yeah.
just all stood there and watched it burn to the ground. So
Yeah, I don't blame them.
no, I don't either. But she was still living across the street from that place.
Yeah. Wow.
Years later, I think that was in 2009, maybe.
Yeah.
This happened in 2005. So I'm surprised somebody didn't burn it down sooner, honestly.
In those rural areas, I'm surprised, the people just didn't rise up and go down and say, you guys got to go.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
that
guys
family
can't stay
did
here
move
no more.
out. Yeah, they moved out pretty quickly, but the trailer sat empty for a
Yeah.
long time. So they moved the venue to Miami to avoid the heavy media coverage in the case on the west coast of Florida. The judge ruled that Cooey's initial confession could not be brought into evidence because you remember how I told you he asked for a lawyer
7 times or 8 times.
8 times he asked for a lawyer. And these investigators, including FBI agents, just sort of ignored him and just kept questioning him, which you're not supposed to do. And I advocate for people not to do this if you're an investigator, because they could have ruled, like this could have been very bad because they could have ruled that the search of his trailer was fruit of the poisonous tree from
Right.
that ill-gotten confession and got rid of all of that evidence. Luckily, the prosecution was able to prove that they would have eventually found the body of Jessica. They would have found it eventually, and it would have led to that trailer. So they did allow the evidence that was found in the trailer. But it really could have gone either way when you don't follow people's constitutional rights. You have to do it by the book. Otherwise, people like this guy can get away with it,
Yeah.
And thank goodness in this case he didn't. So he was found guilty, obviously, with the blood evidence and
Only 4 hours it took the jury to come to that conclusion.
body being found in his yard, like all of that stuff, like kinda is yeah. All of that other evidence did held up in court, I should say.
Look at that man.
Yeah. Man.
Dude.
He's just evil. Just an evil, weird, gross old man. But here's his sentence being read.
Madam Clerk, you may publish the recommendation.
In the Circuit Court of the 11th Judicial Circuit of the State of Florida, in and for Miami-Dade County, change of venue from the 5th Circuit, Citrus County. State of Florida versus Johnny Vander Cooey, case number 2005, CF 298. A majority of the jury, by a vote of 10 to 2, advise and recommend to the court that it impose the death penalty upon Johnny Vander Cooey for the murder of Jessica Marie Lunsford.
Yeah, that was the ruling of the recommended punishment.
Mm-hmm.
That only took an hour and 15 minutes to come to that conclusion. That was going to be the death penalty for him.
So the jury recommends the death penalty, and then of course the judge has to uphold that recommendation. So the judge hears from all sides before he upholds the recommendation. One of the things that the defense was arguing is that Cooey is too dumb to be executed.
Yeah, he suffered from a lifetime of emotional abuse, and he had below normal IQ.
Well, lucky for us, most states, the IQ has to be 80 or below. But in Florida, since you guys have a lower threshold for smarts there, it's 70 or below.
It's the
It-
sun. It's the sun.
yeah. So because his IQ was tested at 78, and keep in mind, they're testing his IQ after he knows that the determination of this test will
Right.
determine whether he gets
I need
killed
to be
or
as
not.
dumb as possible.
So he's trying to be as dumb as possible, and he's still tested at a 78, which, like I said, in most states would take the death penalty off the table, but not in Florida.
Nope.
In
I think
Florida, it's
70.
70. Yep, exactly. But of course, the judge hears from all sides, and Mark does testify in between the jury's recommendation and the judge upholding it. And here's what he had to say. It's pretty short, but Mark Lunsford is just, I mean, when that newscaster said, "You're one of my heroes," I can see what she was talking about, because this man is stronger than anybody I think I've ever come across in my research. His will to help other children and to get justice for his daughter is unmatched to anybody else that I've seen.
I hope you hear her cries as you try to sleep at night. I hope you see the tears run down her face when she asked you to go home. I hope you spend the rest of your life in fear of death. You will never hurt another child again. Judge Howard, speaking for myself, for my community, and the nation, I plead with you to accept the recommendation of the jury for death as presented to you by the jury 10-2, and a vote of 12 for 4 guilty verdicts, and to remember the words of a wise old black man in Terravis. It's just too heavy, Your Honor. It's too heavy for mercy.
It is too heavy for mercy, indeed. Indeed. Like, if that doesn't choke you up, I don't know what will. Like, listening to that dad talk to his daughter's killer.
Can you do a quick Google search on your end
Yeah.
of John Cooey's mugshot? Because people were asking, because that photo, that him inside of the courtroom was a couple years down the road.
Mhm.
What he looked like when they arrested him is what he looked like when that crime happened, and you'll see.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me pull this up. There it is.
Yep.
Oh,
The
that's
one
small.
on the upper left there, on the very corner of him, already shaved, is pretty bad looking too.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not I just imagine this guy coming into your room as a 9-year-old. This was his sex offender mugshot from a few years earlier that they were putting out when they were looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine this guy at 9 years old. Let me
Just terrible.
pull it up. Yeah. Yeah. Imagine this guy coming into your room. Scary is what
Yeah.
that is. She must have been horrified, right?
Yeah.
We'll leave his face up there for a minute.
Horrified, and just, it was, unfortunate she didn't make any sounds that, could
Mhm.
have alerted her grandmother to what was happening.
Exactly.
Because this guy's so much of a coward, he would have ran away.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Or if the dog would have even barked or something like that, like
Yeah.
anything. Which is why I keep a pit bull around. Speaking of, she's napping too much over here, guys. If you could just wake her up a little bit, that'd be good. Hey, Zena. She's not even conscious right now. Not even conscious.
That is my vibe right now. That's what I want to be doing.
Yeah. It's her Sunday afternoon nap time at the moment. So the state of Florida was not able to fulfill that sentence because Cooey died of natural causes. But if you don't think that God has a sense of humor. Do you want to hear what he actually died of?
What did he die of?
Rectal cancer. Which, from what I understand, is very painful.
Yeah.
In places you don't want pain.
Yeah.
So God took care of this one for us, and he
2009.
he
4
died
years later.
in 2009 at the Jacksonville Memorial Hospital, probably surrounded by loved ones if he had any left, but on drugs and being made as comfortable as possible, which is a shame in my opinion.
Yeah.
But he did die of rectal cancer before the state could carry out the death sentence. And when Mark Lunsford heard of this, he was more happy about it than I would have been. I would personally have wanted the state to take care of it, but he was just happy that it was all.
He was gone.
Yeah, he was off. He doesn't. One less thing he has to worry about, and he can focus on helping other kids. So here's this interview. The day, I think this interview was the day or the day after that John Cooey died.
Here is Mark Lunsford, the father of Jessica Lunsford. Mark, I've known you for quite a few years. For the first time, I could say I had a genuine smile from you today. What was your reaction?
Well, it was a big surprise, most definitely. I got a call from the prison system. They wanted to let me know that John Cooey was found dead in his cell, and the autopsy hadn't been done yet, but they would let me know as soon as it was. And it was just, it was a little overwhelming.
He was actually mistaken about that. It wasn't in his cell. They had taken him to a hospital before he died.
Made my day very exciting. I don't know if exciting is the right word. Maybe.
No, it's
exciting.
exciting.
Really pumped. I got on my bike and took off.
Yeah.
And, thought things through, and I realized that okay, John Cooey's dead. So what? There's still 600,000 more.
600,000 more John
more
Cooeys.
sex offenders in the country.
Yeah, and the fact that that's what he's focused on just shows you his mindset of saving every single child that he possibly can. The fact that his daughter's murderer, rapist and murderer, mind you, has died that day, and his first thought is now we have to get more of them.
United States,
It's just inspirational.
There's over 4 million people in the state of Florida trading child porn. But thank God to our governor and the programs that we have available to us. The state, 77 of those guys were caught.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he's not a burden to the state anymore, and he's not something that I have to think about anymore.
Yeah, and so you're not thinking about him anymore, but it seems like it is a relief for you, though. It's a burden off your shoulders.
I think it would be to any family whoever caused them some kind of grief like this was to die before their actual sentencing date. Most definitely. It does take a lot off of you. I mean, because now you no longer have to think about his efforts for his next appeal. Or anything like that. Not that I had any doubt in the Florida system. I believe they'd have killed him. But there is that process called the process of appeals. I heard that he had an appeal and he was asking for a life sentence instead of the death penalty. I guess he got his answer, didn't he? I like that. I really like that.
Are you laughing at Major Victory in the chat?
No, I'm laughing at Mark's response there. Yeah, he appealed for a life sentence. Instead, he got the death penalty still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what people are saying in the chat, I'm surprised he lasted that long in a Florida prison for the crimes that he committed. They must have been keeping him safe in there because I've seen I've covered some of them where prisoners don't take kindly to people who rape and murder 9-year-olds. I'll tell you that much. There's a standard, even though all of these people are felon criminals, this is below even them, and they take care of it on their own.
All they had to do is throw him in general pop.
Exactly.
And tell them what his crime was.
I mean, it was so well publicized. There's no way that people didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
I know your parents, I talked to them a little while ago. They mentioned to me that they were praying that they would be able to be around to see his sentence carried out because the average stay in Florida on death row is 12 and a half years. That's a long time away. How do you feel about him dying in this way from cancer rather than actually being put to death by the state?
Prayer to answer. And, you know,
He's no longer here.
that's what they
Yep.
prayed for, and he died. And, you know, his cause of death isn't sad at all for him. Probably it would be if it was someone else to die that way, but not for him. But I'm just glad it's over. I mean, you know, he's no longer a burden to this state. He's no longer anything that my family and I have to think about, whether or not what's going to happen to him in 12 to 15 years. I think it's like $55,000 a year that it costs the state to have him there. Hey, we don't have to pay that no more. So, you know, but it's okay with me that he's dead. It's okay. It's okay with me, whether it be today or 12 and a half years, as long as it happens.
Yep.
You know, that's not justice, though. It doesn't have anything to do with justice.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned to me earlier that no matter how he died, how much pain he was in with cancer, it didn't compare.
It won't compare to their victims. Sexual offenders and predators, what they put their victims through, whether they you know, die or survive, which one has it the worst? You know, there's no comparison to what those children and some adult women have to go through.
Yeah. He's absolutely right.
And what they do, what it does to their lives if they survive. Some of these people can be fighters, and some of them can't. And so, you know, it's there's no comparison to how anybody who would commit a crime like that, if he dies, how he dies does not compare to his victims.
Did you ever wish that you would have been able to sit down and to actually talk to the man face to face?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
I would kill him.
Yeah.
I could think of better things to do. The system will never allow you to let that happen. But like I said, dude, it ended a lot of things, a lot of thoughts for me about him. Those thoughts I don't have to think about this stuff anymore.
I know in a lot of his letters, one of his last few letters that he sent out from
And honestly, knowing how religious Mark was, he probably had thoughts about killing this guy that he felt bad about, so that alleviated his thoughts about killing the guy who killed his. Because being a Christian, we're both Christian, you don't want to have thoughts like that, even
Right.
if it is about somebody who murdered your child, you know. And that took that weight off of his shoulders, having him die naturally like that. God took that burden away from him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
prison. Ironically, never had a visitor in jail, but he sent out a few letters and always mentioned God and wrote Bible verses. What do you think about that? And now that he's died,
Well, I mean, you know,
is there forgiveness?
not for me, you know. But he's not. He didn't come to me. He went to God, you know. And I can't speak for God, but I can tell you that I've been told that God says if you hurt one of His kids, you'd be better off with a rope tied around your neck with a rock and throw it in the deepest sea compared to what He's going to do to you. So maybe while John was laying there dying, maybe his feet was getting hot, and then his ass caught on fire, and then his head bursted into flames.
What's next for you, Mark? I know
Very
earlier
vivid
you mentioned,
description.
you know, this is my
Very.
last question for you. What's next for you? You mentioned the other sex offenders that are here in the country, the hundreds of thousands of
Right.
them, and are you going to continue your fight?
Yeah, I do. I try to show as much support in Washington and on a state level to the U.S. Marshals and to local law enforcement who works with the U.S. Marshals on these sting operations to go out and apprehend the absconded sex offenders. They're short-funded, so constantly advocates like myself, Ed Smart, the Surviving Parents Coalition, the National Center for Missing Children, we're all in support of.
By the way, Ed Smart is Elizabeth Smart's father, and I actually spoke about Elizabeth Smart on my last
I remember that case too.
episode. Yeah.
Of being real hard on federal legislators up in D.C. because they are not funding things the way they should be. I know President Obama made a statement during his campaign that he was in support, but you know, where's the funding for these things?
Never
Mark
happened.
Lunsford, thank you very much,
Thanks, man.
and
Yeah,
enjoy your time.
Thank you.
I forgot that this was during Obama's time
Mhm.
as president. So
Exactly. So I guess the last little bit that we need to talk about is that um, Mark was going to sue the Citrus County Sheriff's Office
Right, and not for money. Well, not necessarily money, but for change.
for change. Yeah.
Right,
And
because if you remember back when you were discussing the details,
mhm,
what led them initially to that house was the search dogs, right?
yep. Um, that actually never ended up happening, and I think he got a lot of backlash when he announced the lawsuit. There's a rule in Florida that if you're going to sue a government agency, you have to do a letter of intent 6 months ahead of time
Mhm.
to let the government agency know that
You're
you're
about to sue.
intending we're gonna sue you in 6 months from now, or,
Yeah.
right? It's called a letter of intent, and the letter of intent went out, in February of 2008,
Yep.
and within just a couple of months, he retracted that. But in the letter, it said the negligence of the Citrus County Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement directly and indirectly led to the death of Jessica Lunsford. Uh, and then, this is about under the Florida law, written notice is required 6 months before a lawsuit may be filed against a government. The notice says that Jessica's parents will seek an undisclosed amount of money for medical and funeral expenses, as well as mental pain and suffering. But what he was really suing for was change. But you can't sue for change in a court of law, so he had to put
Attach money. Yeah.
attach a monetary amount to it. And I think the people of Florida did not like that because this sheriff's office, the Citrus County Sheriff's Office especially, did do initially what they were supposed to do. And like the sheriff spoke at Jessica's funeral, and they were really just all a community down there. So he did
Mhm.
end up dropping the lawsuit. But I do have a little video pulled up about the lawsuit as well.
Crime that was followed nationwide. A little girl kidnapped, raped, and murdered, buried in a neighbor's yard in Florida. The parents of that girl are now suing the law enforcement agencies that captured her killer. The father and mother of 9-year-old victim Jessica Lunsford gave notice to authorities today. West 2's Greg Fox is here live to explain what they want. Greg?
Jim, the sheriff of Citrus County calls this new development shocking. He says the only one responsible for the kidnapping and killing of Jessica Lunsford is John Cooey, the man sent to death row for the crimes.
You didn't lose your kid. I lost mine.
Clearly upset while recalling the horrible death of his daughter, Mark Lunsford insisted on talking only about an upcoming fundraiser for a child advocacy center named for Jessica and refused to answer questions about his notice to sue the sheriff and state law enforcement.
Mark, your letter said the sheriff was negligent. Was the sheriff negligent?
Well, I know that law enforcement needs child advocacy centers to be able to do prosecution against sex offenders and predators. And I have to stay focused on that.
Jessica disappeared in February 2005, launching a search that lasted for weeks. Roughly a month later, neighbor John Cooey was arrested and later showed authorities where to find the 9-year-old's body. Cooey was convicted and sentenced to die.
We truly believe that this litigation is baseless.
Citrus County Sheriff Jeff Dawsey told reporters Cooey alone is responsible for Jessica's death.
That we are going to vigorously defend our agencies against this baseless allegation made by the Lunsfords that we failed to do our job.
But Cooey's confession may be the basis for the lawsuit. In it, Cooey says officers did not thoroughly search his home, where he says Jessica had been hidden and was likely still alive. He said, quote, if they, deputies, would have came in, they would have caught her in my closet. They didn't search. An autopsy showed Jessica likely was buried alive, but could not determine how long she had lived after her kidnapping.
But Sheriff Dawsey points out many of the statements in Cooey's confession have since been proven false. Jim?
So that's where the story ends. I mean, I guess the story doesn't ever end because Mark is still out there advocating for stricter laws on sex offenders. And like I said, I believe he was suing for change in the department.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, and you might disagree with me, I don't know what more they could have done except to seek a warrant when they wouldn't let them in the house.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, if they would have just went in and started searching that house without a warrant, like the police should not be able to come to your door and just search your house
Right.
because there's a kid missing across the street. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they did anything wrong except not seek that warrant.
Yeah.
Like, I think Mark thinks that they should have kicked in the door and found his daughter, which obviously is the dream. That's what he wants to have happened, but it didn't happen. And it's because there's laws in place to protect innocent people too, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if I was a father, if I knew that that was a sex offender right across the street there and stuff, I maybe busting down the door to go look.
Well, that's the thing, is he wasn't registered at that house, so they didn't know until days
That's right,
later.
yeah.
You know, he was registered at a different house.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things in Jessica's law that has been passed, like we said earlier, in 44 different states, is that if a sex offender fails to re-register at their correct location, it becomes another felony on their record. And a warrant gets issued for their arrest immediately. So hopefully that helps keep people updating the records like they're supposed to. Apparently, there was no punishment involved in not updating your address before that.
I guess not. Yeah,
Crazy
crazy,
to me.
right?
Yeah.
It's just such a depraved world we live in with people like that are out there, and this turned into a crime of opportunity for John Cooey. You know, initially what he had said was that he broke in to steal from the house there.
Yeah,
I'm sure to maybe help fund his drug habit that he was probably, and during that one of the reports I read, he had said that he had seen Jessica before in the yard of her house there, and he presumed she was like 6 years old.
Wow. So he thought it was an even younger girl than it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's so creepy.
Sick man.
Very sick man. And just by looking at him, you can kind of tell a little bit. He did seem kind of creepy.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But yeah, this is an ongoing effort. Like I said, it's only passed in 44 states. There's some states. I wish I would have pulled up the list of states that it's passed
and I'm
and
surprised
figured out where it's not passed.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't been picked back up by the U.S. House of Representatives to maybe push this through as a federal mandate or federal law to take place. But I guess they're too busy squabbling over how they're spending our money. Overseas, so
exactly. Well, there was a lot of funding involved in this law as well, because one of the points that you went over is that anybody who sexually assaulted or is a child predator gets put on electronic surveillance for the whole time they're on parole. And like, what's it called? Parole. What's the other thing?
House arrest.
Yeah. Well, it's if they get out, probation. So if they're on probation or parole, they stay on an ankle monitor the entire time. So it's not necessarily house arrest, but they can track where they've been if something happens in the area. So it would have been really easy to figure out who did this if all of those, what do we say, 207 sex offenders were
trackers were available.
Yeah, were available. They could see who was near Jessica Lunsford's home that day.
They would have seen John Cooey was at the home.
Yeah, literally at the home, if not across the street, like living across the street for weeks ahead of time, but that costs a lot of money. So there is funding involved in this, but it is an election year. So maybe we can get this going again. As far as our elected officials getting this passed as a federal law.
Yeah.
Although what they promise in their campaign, as Mark Lunsford said, Obama had promised to get it passed as a national law or a federal law, and
you see where that went.
Didn't do anything about it once he was elected. So
these stories that always involve kids are always some of the hardest ones to look at.
They are, and I'm glad you were here to do it with me, because otherwise I might have been just reading the facts of this case and weeping on air. So It's much easier to have somebody here to jump in with me going over this stuff. I do appreciate you being here. Why don't you plug your stuff one more time, or did you have anything else to say about the case? Any points that I missed?
No, it's just just unfortunate. I don't know if I mentioned this on air or when we were talking beforehand, but a crime like this similar happened just a couple years earlier down in Bradenton County, where a girl about the same age as Jessica here was taken by another guy right in front of a car wash that happened to catch it on camera.
Yeah.
And he went on to rape her and kill her and dump her behind a church just a couple days later. I want to say her name was Carly, but I can't remember. But I know the guy's name was Joe. Joe Smith. Was it Joe Smith? It just sounds very familiar. And I'm going to have to Google it. I'm going to have to Google it now.
You got to watch out for those Joseph Smiths.
For real. For real.
Yeah, you were telling me that before we went live.
Yeah,
about that
Joe
case.
Smith.
And then I was telling you about the case that happened up in my neck of the
Florida.
woods in the Midwest, where that boy was kidnapped right off of his bicycle while out with his brother and friends.
Yeah, here it is. Yep, Joseph Smith. That was his name, and
Yeah.
Carly was her name. I
Yeah.
was correct. It happened. Let's see if I remember when it happened. 2004.
Yeah.
The year before. I remember this. This crime had me in tears at work following it.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith, who was convicted of killing an 11-year-old Carly Burcia in 2004, died in prison at age 55. Another one that died in prison.
Yeah.
The cause of death was unknown. He was 39 when he committed the crime in Sarasota. It was Sarasota. It's the only detail I had wrong. It was Sarasota, not Bradenton.
That's right near Bradenton. Though.
It's right
an
next
hour
to it.
away. Yeah.
It's close. Smith was a long-standing member of Florida's death row for the abduction, rape, and murder of Carly. The case made headlines worldwide after he was captured on a car wash camera leading her away by the wrist as 144 people were watching the Super Bowl on television. That happened during Super Bowl Sunday.
It happened during the Super Bowl. That's
Yep. And that's right about the same time frame as a year later we see this one happen.
Yeah, in February.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah. Will you hop down, please?
So this case here, the Jessica Lunsford, this case prior, this is the one that kind of rushing back to my head because I know just following that one, in February 1st, 2004, her body was found behind the Central Church of Christ on Proctor Road 4 days after her abduction.
Yeah. Well, you suggested this Jessica Lunsford case
I did.
to me, and I had heard of it, but I had never done a deep dive into it. And as soon as you suggested it, I started doing a deep dive, and I was messaging you. I'm like, holy cow, Frank. This case is crazy. So I'm glad we were able to make it work where you were able to come on to cover this with me, since you did miss the last time you're supposed to come on. But whatever, we'll forgive you. You're forgiven. You're forgiven. I did cover Adam Walsh, which was the original case you suggested to cover, which is
Florida, we just have so many crime things we could cover every week.
People be Floridying in Florida. Lots of Floridying going on.
But I really appreciate you having me on today with you and being able to actually take part in this. I know we've been trying to do this literally for months.
We've been trying to do a show together for like years now, actually. So if you guys don't know, I used to be a regular fill-in host on one of Frank's many shows that he has. He's been on YouTube a very long time.
Yeah.
We've been we have such good chemistry, I feel anyway. The audience will let us know if we have good chemistry, but I think we do, and we need to get something going.
Talking about these super serious topics like this doesn't give us the ability to really kind of show all of that,
We still had a little bit of levity.
Yes. Because we want to take, stuff like this is serious topics, and I don't want to, goof too much during these stuff like that, because I just don't feel it's appropriate, because it's serious.
Yeah.
And it was a person's life, and it was a family was involved, and it's just really dark stuff. And then with all that stuff, but but it's important that work that you actually do, actually
Thank
doing
you.
things like this, because not everybody can talk about stuff the way you do about these things and still be able to say, hey, I'll see you guys next week for the next time when we could dive into another horrific crime
Yeah.
that took place.
Well, and
It brings awareness to many things, and the way you present it, your investigations into a lot of the stuff, where it brings laws that were passed after the
Mhm.
crime that had taken place, and the communities that were impacted by it, and the families that were involved and stuff like that. There's so much nuance to a lot of the stuff that you bring to your show, and you deliver it in such a very very digestible way that you feed it to your audience. So it's just amazing that you're here today.
Frank, you're gonna make me cry. Thank you so much. Those are very kind words. And I do love a case where if a case of a murdered 9-year-old can have a happy ending, I think the fact that 44 states looked around and said, we need to do something about this, is the happiest ending that we could possibly have to the abduction, sexual assault, and rape of a 9-year-old little girl. And the fact that Mark made
still
that his
fighting.
life, he's still fighting, make that
Yeah.
his life mission. Real quick, I need to give Xena another treat and then we'll
Yes.
be done. Hey Xena, come here. We're not even going to turn her camera on. Just come here.
She'll come to your camera.
Come here. There you go. That's from Erica. I'm going to give you 2 just because Erica really loves you. Okay, now hop down. Thank you so much, Erica. You guys can find Frank on the Let's Be Frank YouTube channel.
Yep.
Also over on Twitter. You can find Frank anywhere. Just type into the Google Let's Be Frank and he
Yes.
comes up. Frank's a big deal. He's kind of a big deal. He's my most famous IRL friend. So
I'm not as big a deal as I used to be. It's because I've taken too much time off, that
Yeah.
YouTube hates me and all kinds of stuff. If you've ever followed me, you know the ups and downs of doing this type of content, and actually saying, hey, I'm going to do this for a living. What a dangerous thing that is.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm blessed to be able to do things like this, and to be able to actually enjoy doing this for a living most of the time when YouTube says I'm allowed to. But in all seriousness, you can follow me on Let's Be Frank if you're interested in politics, if you're interested in the cultural things that are happening in the country. I cover a wide variety of things when it happens to that, and we're just happen to be an election year right now. And so I'm doing a lot of stories over there, and I'll probably crank up way more live streams than I probably could handle. But it's a great place to go and take part of that. It's a great community that I have over there. I don't even have a name for my community. I think we just call it Let's Be Frank community, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have a cool name or anything like that, like the Ignats or anything like that. So I don't have cool names. I'm not very cool. But I do have another channel that I really do enjoy promoting way more than my Let's Be Frank channel, and that's Uniquely Us. And that's where I get to host Bible studies and host prayer streams and just good family friendly content. We just did a family trip down to the Florida State Fair. First time in 10 years we have been, because we moved out of the area about a decade ago, and we hadn't returned since then. And it was a very cool, nostalgic feeling being able to attend a fair again. And with our older kids, 2 adult kids now and a teenager, visiting the fair, and they get to give us a different perspective of how they felt about it. And so I got to record a lot of that and made it into a video. So I do stuff like that over there. So you like life vlog things, I got that over there too. So check that out. I'm a man of many hidden talents, apparently.
You will definitely find me on the Uniquely Us channel in the live chat more often than not. And Erica, thank you very much. Just linked that channel in the
thank
chat.
you, Erica.
I will add it. I did not add that channel to the description when I was setting things up, but after we're done, I'll go back and add that channel too. I love your prayer streams when you're able to do those. I know it's been a lot lately, so you haven't been, but I do enjoy the morning prayer streams over on the Uniquely Us YouTube channel. I consider you guys my my prayer group,
Thank you.
my internet prayer group. When I talk, I've said before about my prayer group, and this is who I'm talking about. It's Frank. Frank is my prayer leader. Frank is the prayer group. That's where you'll find me for sure. I appreciate everyone coming out. Frank, again, I appreciate you coming and your kind words about me. I might clip that and just play it as affirmation in the mornings.
Yeah. No, I mean,
to keep me going.
I bet every word of it. And I feel like we don't talk enough sometimes. We always by chat or by group chatting or occasional text message here and there. But if we're able to see you and hear you, and it's really cool. So and just one quick more thing is that we got the chance to hang out together one time, and we got to eat a meal together. That was pretty cool.
We broke bread together at the was it Texas Roadhouse?
It was Texas Roadhouse.
We broke Texas Roadhouse bread together, and it was an amazing time. And we weren't stranded with a broken car at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
During that trip. And we did end up in a Walmart parking lot, which apparently is where all your visits with friends end up.
They
from
always
what
do.
Sharon tells
They
me.
always do.
They always end up in a Walmart parking lot. So I appreciate you coming. I appreciate every one of you in the audience who's hearing me right now. Go down and give Frank a subscription on his Let's Be Frank YouTube channel. If you're not into the politics thing, I'm not that big into the politics thing. I understand. Definitely subscribe to the Uniquely Us page because that's a good one as well.
Yeah, that's where you'll see the real me, the actual everyday me.
Yeah, exactly. Have a good night. We'll see y'all next week. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Next week we're going to do a Crime Land episode, I believe, next week because I'm still working on my DC Sniper notes. We might change it up and do DC Sniper. But coming up on the channel, we have the DC Sniper. Another one that hits close to home because he came through right here in Atlanta, or there was two of them.
Yeah.
Was committing crimes all the way from like Mississippi all the way up to DC on the way. But yeah, DC Sniper, Behind the Music, Smooth Criminal, Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal is about a real crime. We're going to go over that one. We have a Leprechaun stream on St. Patrick's Day with Steven in-house. Anybody who's listening right now, if you come across any crimes that are related to any little people, midgets, dwarfs, whatever you want to call them, any crimes related to little people, send them my way. We're going to have a Crime Land episode all with leprechauns. Daniel Holtzclaw and Julius Jones also coming up in March. So we'll see you guys here for those ones. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good night, Frank. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Good night, everybody.
What you're saying, we're late stage in the catacombs, shuffling a single card today, broken table trying to play some ping pong. It's not subtle when we celebrate a magazine with the pages torn. My body cracks, knees buckling, I got a bad case of brain fog. Said I got a bad case of brain fog. So I'ma take my butt home. being burned.